came down to put on this presentation for us and walk you throughout the ship and see our ghosts. So we got Peter, Jason, and Miriam. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to come find me. Otherwise, enjoy your evening. And eventually, we'll be serving you all some crepes. So that'll be super exciting. We got crepes, pop, and water. So no alcohol, unfortunately, but not suited for the event. So enjoy yourselves and come find me if you have any questions. And have a great evening.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
All right, can everybody hear me in the back? Okay, perfect. Before we get into this, I have a question, and I want to see it by a show of hands. Who here actually believes in ghosts? Who here is possibly on the fence? And who doesn't believe at all? Okay, that's okay. Yeah, as Katie said, we're the Canadian Paranormal Society, or at least 3 members of it. I'm Jason Hewlett, one of the co-founders. This is Peter Redd, who is also a co-founder, and Miriam Donnelly, who's one of our investigators. Tonight we're going to go through a little bit about who we are. We're going to talk about the paranormal investigation process. We're going to go over the equipment we use, and even later on we can show some people that if you're interested. We'll go through the types of hauntings, or alleged hauntings, however you want to look at it. We'll show some photographic evidence that we've come across, especially Peter in his many years. And then at the end we'll take some questions before there's a bit of a break, and we take you guys on sort of these tours. We'll kind of split off into different groups with each of us leading you through different parts of the ship and switching around now. So who we are, I guess a bit about myself. My background is actually in journalism. I was a newspaper reporter in Kamloops for 10 years at the Kamloops Daily News before it closed. I was a crime reporter. I have a background in film, and I've always sort of just been interested in the paranormal. Like many people, and you hear as Peter tells his story, it starts with something weird that happens to you when you're a kid that you can't explain, and then it just kind of sticks with you. And at some point in your life, you decide to do something about that and start investigating it. I kind of took my journalism skills and applied that to this really weird pseudoscientific field. I've been doing this for about 20 years. My first investigation was in 2003 at Tronquil Sanitarium in Kamloops. Represent. Which was very interesting. I had no idea what I was doing at all. I just went with someone who said they were psychic, another friend of mine who was with a shock cable, so he had a bunch of camera equipment, someone who was completely skeptical, and someone who said they had experiences. I knew the caretaker at Tronquil let me stay there all night. All of us stayed there all night. And aside from a couple batteries dying prematurely, we had absolutely nothing happen the entire evening, which is actually very common. And so back in 2017, Peter and I connected when he was president of Penticton Paranormal Society. I was investigator with them until 2020, when Peter and I decided to form our own group because he had relocated to Kamloops, and we created the Canadian Paranormal Society. Peter?
Yeah, afternoon guys. My name's Peter Redd. As you can see, I'm not Canadian. I was born in London, England. I left England probably when I was 22. I lived in Australia and New Zealand for a few years before immigrating to Canada 15 years ago. I started off investigating about 30 years ago, like most people. Personal experience when I was a child. I grew up in a very old house dating back to the 16th century. We had some things going on in our home. After that, natural curiosity about the paranormal. Joined up with a local paranormal research team, which were more spiritual than what I deal with these days, and then took my craft to Australia and New Zealand, and ended up in Canada. I took over the oldest paranormal research group in North America, the Penticton Paranormal Society, which started in the 1960s. Up to about 4 years ago, who here has heard of the TV show Ghost Hunters? I used to be a director of TAPS. I was a TAPS international liaison for. So if you were a client that was in the middle of nowhere, you had problems, paranormal nature, it'd be my job to allocate a team under certain criteria in that area to come and help you guys out. So I did that for about 10 years, and then got fed up with the drama that came out of it. So I quit and carried on my own team. We then had Vancouver Paranormal Society, but I moved up from Vancouver to Kamloops, so that didn't really make much sense for the Vancouver Paranormal Society anymore. So I dissolved that and handed it over to someone else, and me and Jason started the Vancouver Paranormal Society a couple of years ago. I do currently work as well with a ordained exorcist in Washington State. I do a lot of remote documenting for an exorcist as well, and I also participate in my own YouTube channel as well, and obviously our show, which Jason will cover as well.
Yeah, we have a TV show called We Want to Believe, which started on YouTube, but we recently were launched on a streaming site called Paraflix, which they call themselves the Netflix of, paranormal, basically. Because when we go out on these investigations, quite often we document what we do, not all with the intention of always turning it into something like television or YouTube, but just they're extra cameras are extra sets of eyes, same with the audio equipment. But we decided in certain cases it sort of worked to turn it into television. And Paraflix was really interested in what we did. So we've got 5 episodes that have dropped in the last 5 weeks. We've got 1 more episode coming out next Friday, and then 3 more episodes around Halloween. And we're currently shooting for future seasons because apparently people like to watch it, which is fine with us. So that's part of what we do. And then we also have I Want to Believe, which is not only the YouTube channel, but Peter and I have written 3 books. They've been published through Beyond the Fray Publishing, which is One Man's Journey to the Paranormal, which is Peter's story, which actually also is right here. None of these are for sale, by the way. We have here another one called An Investigator's Archive, where we talk to various paranormal investigators, cryptozoologists, like Ken Gearhart, Seth Greenlove, who makes documentaries through Small Town Monsters, and chronicled their stories. And then we did an investigation into near-death experiences as well, which we put in the book Dying Light. And if you're ever interested, they're all available on Amazon. So the investigation process, we do various types. There's sort of residential investigations, which means one of you has something in your house that you don't understand and you want us to come and take a look at. We do commercial, which are sort of in, like the SS Sicamous, which also ties into historical societies, or someone's business where they again have weird stuff going on that they want someone like us to come and take a look at. And then we also do government buildings and public sites. And generally, people come to us, we also sort of put the word out, this is what we do, but people generally come to us wanting to get some sort of explanation. Contrary to what you see in a lot of television shows, we never claim that we can remove spirits. That's just not what we do. We try to provide what evidence we can back to the homeowner or business owner or site owner, and then they determine kind of what they want to do with it. Quite often people will they're okay, they just want an explanation so they're not crazy. And they're quite okay to coexist with whatever is there. If they sort of want something taken care of, generally, it's up to the homeowner. They're the ones that can make that decision. It's like you have an unwanted guest, you tell it to leave. It comes down to us. So we're not sort of exorcists or ghostbusters or anything like that. Our basic goal is simply to provide some sort of logical explanation or validate the witness's claims. Quite often what people think is paranormal can come down to something actually quite normal, as creaky old house sounds, water in pipes, etc. We always investigate in numbers, even if it's just Peter and I going into someone's home. We never go by ourselves, not because we're worried that something will possess us or throw us out a window, but it's just safer that way. Sometimes the people that we are called by, there's mental health issues, there's alcohol and drug addiction. It's just sort of safer to go with somebody else. Investigations typically go between 4 and 5 hours. We do it daytime or nighttime. Ghost activity can happen any time of the day. It doesn't have to be dark or at midnight. And we sort of just so you get a better understanding of things. Common misconceptions are that on every investigation, something paranormal happens. Actually, despite you might think it's actually very rare that something kind of paranormal happens. I know on through the website it explained this was going to be a thrilling evening of ghost hunting. It's probably not. A lot of time is spent sitting in a room with a recorder, asking a question, waiting a minute, asking another question, waiting a minute, and sometimes if you think you hear something, you get really excited, and then you might have missed it. If something did happen, so you go back and review the evidence after the fact.
Yeah, but that thing that's always exciting, it's always someone's stomach growling.
Yeah, because we've gone to McDonald's before going to your house.
That's the demon.
And it's your stomach rumbling. So yeah.
So, guys who watched paranormal TV shows are probably used to seeing all the top gadgets and all the famous gadgets that make all the whistling noise and buzzing noises and stuff like that. A lot of that in relation to what we do is rubbish. We generally use equipment that, on the basic premises of that we understand the parameters of how they function. So if there was, if that device was to go off, we don't understand why that device would go off. So things like EMF is kind of a myth in relation to what we do. I'll just go through a couple of points. So the main attribute of a paranormal investigator, regardless of what anyone says, is a pencil notepad. We use that to write down when we believe incidences happen. We look for familiarities or sequences in relation to activities. So if we hear a noise or a particular voice at a certain time, we write it down, and the next time we go back, if we hear the same thing again, we just compare notes to see whether it's there's any consistency in that at all. Sometimes that will then bridge on to us assessing or thinking whether that is a residual type of fault or whether that's an intelligent kind of fault, which we'll go through definitions later on. We use motion sensor cameras or track cameras, basic hunting cameras. Typically we use them outside. There's been a lot of locations, particularly on around Paris and places like that, where there's a lot more energy in the wooded area, forest areas and stuff like that. We've used a lot of hunting cameras and stuff like that, and we've been very successful. We do use motion cameras inside homes and houses occasionally, but the issue is that when we've got the client in the home and investigators walking around, I don't particularly want to go and look at 100 pictures of Jason's face on every single picture. So we normally pick and choose. It's normally more of a controlled environment where that particular room is isolated and the door's shut. We use voice recorders. When I first started in the field, many years ago, I used a tape recorder. Obviously after that, it's evolved over the years with digital recorders and stuff like that. There is some advantages with using more digital, but we do sometimes revert back to tape recording sometimes because it produces a more of a white noise background, which helps us deter mechanical noises and environmental noises over actual voice phenomena. Laser grids. Basic premises of them is it's a laser. It's a laser points grid at the wall. Basic concept of that is that what we do is we set that up with motion cameras and stuff like that, and then if it picks up any motion on the camera, if there's any obstruction to that laser where it's pointing, with the laser grid we're able to identify how high or how wide that shadow figure or that anomaly is over that camera. Been quite successful with that over the years as well.
We actually had in Bailey House in Merritt. We were down in the basement and we had the laser grid set up in one of our cameras, and it was really interesting. We had the lights on, the laser grid, we turned the lights off, and you could distinctly see the corner of the room where it was just dark. The laser wasn't even showing across it. It was in the shape of kind of a head and a shoulder like that. And we turned the light on trying to figure out where this obstruction was, and there was nothing there that could have caused it. We turned the light off and it was still there. And then slowly, it was almost like it moved away. And you could kind of see the lights. We actually caught that on our video cameras, which we thought was pretty neat. So it is, I don't know how it works like that, but it just does.
It was totally weird because at that time I was more confused. I didn't think it was anything paranormal because I had the laser grid pointing out in front of me and there was no obstruction in front of it. And there was just like this thing blocking the laser grid in front of me. And that happened in the basement of the house as well. Exactly the same thing as well. And again, that's never happened to me before in any other investigation. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, who here has heard of spirit boxes? Who here is annoyed of spirit boxes when they actually...
It's a terrible sound.
I know, terrible. So, the basic premise of a spirit box is basically a radio that skips through frequencies at a certain speed. The theory behind it is that there's voices, intelligent ghosts, or whatever comes through with intelligent responses back to your questions, that kind of thing. It has a lot of criticism in relation to it as well, because you've got the static noise of the radio skipping through, stuff like that. There's a lot of negativity in it to the field as well. But with the devices that I use some mechanics that comes up to the spirit box that takes the static away, and I look for the frequency spikes. So, for example, if you're going through, you're skipping through your radio, you're getting through various radio stations and stuff like that. Every now and again, you'll get a frequency spike come through that's louder to the others. What I'm looking for on that is that I'm looking for that frequency spike. And I'm able to dissect that from my spirit box, and I've had some very compelling evidence from that. I've had my own name, full name being pulled out of that, co-team members as well, locations, very compelling evidence on that over the years.
I've even had my voice come back. We asked for a name and it said Jason, but it was in my voice.
Yeah.
Which was unnerving. Maybe it's Jason under 12, I don't know, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, we've also had a number of voices come through that's insulted Jason over the years as well. There's some kind of ghost that follows him around.
Yeah, I'm in trouble when I die.
That's a prick. And seems to be correct.
Good judge you can.
Okay, thermal images as well. We've got a couple of thermal images in the back here. Generally with that, my thing is I look at heat signatures, because things like EMF and any other item that we're looking for, searching for things like EMF or radiation levels and stuff like that. A lot of those are unforeseen, so things that you can't see. Things like if there was a Wi-Fi, if you're in an area of a Wi-Fi, all of a sudden you get a Wi-Fi boost come through, that will spike your EMF meter. Things like with heat signatures, and when the temperature suddenly drops in the environment, you're aware of the factors. So, for example, if we're in here and I get a cold spot, hopefully we will.
Yes, it would be nice.
I'd be aware of the variables, so it would be, okay, it's cold in it because that door's open, or someone's just walked into the room and it's just off. It's more controlled, and that's generally what we've been more successful with over the years as well.
Anything that you can kind of do in a controlled way of temperature is a really good way to do that.
Yeah. Cameras, I use a lot of still cameras that have been modified. I like to simulate the light, so in certain certain investigations, I will turn the lights off, not because ghosts naturally come out in the dark, nothing to do with that. I like to simulate with different lights, different colour lights, and experiment with both sides of the full spectrum, so it would be UV or ultraviolet kind of light, that kind of thing. Do-it-yourself equipment. I've been recently creating some equipment for my own team and Sicamous Small Fortune. I don't know if you guys have seen any ghost equipment or anything like that that's advertised in stores. They normally range for about $300 to $400. This particular one I've just made up is it's called a tripwire, which it's for sale when you go to some of the stores for about $400, and all of this material cost me about $20 to put together. So it's starting to pay off already with things like that, and it helps our team as well develop and move forward in the field. Yeah, sorry. This basically picks up any kind of movement, stuff like that. Sorry, it's going to go because it's in my hand, but generally. Okay, what we don't use, EMF detectors, as to what I was alluding to earlier on. EMF is it's a kind of phenomenon within our field that a lot of people believe that spirits when there's an influx or a fluctuation in EMF, spirits manifest, or they paranormal activity happens. That indeed is a myth, but at the same time, we're not aware about any. If an EMF meter fluctuates, I don't actually know whether that's actually paranormal or whether it's a fact that someone just walking past outside cell phone is going off, or there's a electricity line going off outside that's actually causing that fluctuation as well. So we generally throw that out. SLS cameras as well. Who's here seen the SLS cameras? It's a camera that was developed on the Connect. What's it called?
Xbox Connect.
Xbox Connect, where you've got the stick figure and stuff like that. It's used quite a lot in the field, but it's a computer console that makes predictions and stuff like that. And then Ovilus, which is a little controller that spits out random words as well, which is just a microchip.
It's pre-programmed words into the computer, so you can't really rely on it as actually communicating with anything. I used same with the apps. I used an app once. I turned it on, and I asked if anyone's there, and I got some jumbled word. And I was like, "Can you say that again?" Then it came up asking me to pay $5.99 for a monthly subscription. So I don't use apps. They're not. We just stick with the basics. The basics work the best.
Yeah, we've the only apps that we've used over the years is I've used seismic apps to register vibration and stuff like that. But you're not going to get an app that's going to find ghosts for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have.
Yeah, that'd be a lot more cheaper for us in the long run. But there you go. Anyway.
All right, types of hauntings. There are a few different types here, which Peter, I think if you hit the button. There's residual haunting. Now, it's also sometimes referred to as stone tape theory, and that's basically the belief that something has happened that is so traumatic that energy has been left in that place. And if you go there at midnight, every midnight, or midnight on every, like Saturday night, you will hear sort of a spirit there, and it'll walk down a hallway. There's a residential school that we went to at the coast, where every time you go to sort of the back hallway where the fire escape is, you would hear someone running down that fire escape every single time. So it's not interactive. It's just sort of something playing over and over again. I like to use the analogy because I'm old. When you used to make mixed tapes on like tapes, and you could record over those tapes, so you would record a new mixed tape over top of that, but in the dead spot between the songs, you hear a little bit of the old tape playing. That's basically a residual haunting. They're quite common. You can't communicate. They're not communicating with you. You're just sort of seeing something play back from back in time.
Give you an example of a residual haunting. About 27 years ago, there was just where I grew up. There was a historical village called Oxted, and there's an old pub that dates back to the 9th century. And we started investigating there on and off for a good couple of months, because obviously drinking.
Right.
And we had interesting results at a certain time of every night. There would be like a vibration coming through the bar area, and it was constant at a certain time. I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning that noise would occur, and we obviously ascertained that as being residual because we couldn't explain it at all. That there was no trains running at that time nearby or anything like that. And it was that continual at 2 o'clock, that vibration was happening. What was interesting, a couple of years later, a friend of mine went in there with a psychic, and the psychic identified as it being a legion of Roman soldiers walking through that bar at head height. So it's basically, all you can see is like they're from their neck upwards kind of thing walking through that bar, which is, no true evidence to back that up, but we found that kind of interesting as well.
So you will sort of, like I was saying, hear or see an apparition on a staircase or wandering down a hall. I hear splashing in a pool when there's no water or bathtub. Kind of something like that. Train whistles blowing when there are no tracks, but maybe there used to be. Radio heard playing music in a room where there is no radio. Apparently, here at the Sicamous, people will hear piano playing on its own downstairs. So there's an example. I haven't had too many residual haunting experiences. Myself, Peter is just sort of sharing one of them there. I don't know if Miriam wants to throw any in, if she has any. I'll put her on the spot.
Yeah, no, sorry. What?
No?
No,
Okay.
no.
No, I mean, what was it? Sorry.
You're okay.
That's
You're okay.
right.
It's, yeah, when I lived in
Intelligent
England.
hauntings. This is sort of the traditional, the classic haunting, and this is where the spirits will kind of interact with you and communicate with you. This is the one where when you're looking for EVPs, you're gonna get something back or something on the spirit box, or a door will open and close on its own. Lights turning off and on. I had an example in my house, which my father built, and he passed away in 1991, and I took over the house, and I had weird stuff happening in that house, and a friend of mine was there, and he wasn't really much of a believer, and he's like, so do you think, your dad's spirit's still here? And I said, yeah, sometimes. He goes, well, what kind of proof do you have? And Dad was a practical joker, so at that exact moment, all the lights in the house went out, but the street lights were all on, and there was lights on the other side of the street, and I just kind of went like jokingly, that's enough, Dad, and all the lights came back on. So that's kind of an example of that. Objects being taken or moved around and then turning up somewhere else. Voices joining in conversations. Cold spots, which we'd love to feel right now. Feeling physically touched or having your hair or clothing tugged. Seeing objects move on your own. Theories of that. Prime example here at the Sicamous, there was a captain named Joseph Weeks, who was one of the last captains. People believe that his spirit is still here because he had such a love and affinity for the vessel. That's why some homes say, my home, my dad would have still stuck around because he built it, there's a family member there. Perhaps it's a spirit they're confused and don't know that they've passed on. Or there's unfinished business to tend to, which becomes the plot of a lot of Hollywood movies. I had a Bailey house as well, that's another example. When Peter and I were sort of investigating it, I had the toy hammer come off a shelf as I walked by. But I was like here and it was over there and it didn't go, it just came flying out beside us. Things like that happen. I think they're pretty common type of haunting if there really are ghosts. I don't think, Peter?
Yeah, probably one example that's on my head. About 19 years ago when I was living down in the Lower Mainland, we were investigating a place in Surrey, BC, and it was just at the end of the night, and I usually when we're about to go and leave and stuff like that, everyone's eyes are starting to shut and stuff like that. I give it one last kick of the can, it's just like, okay, we're about to leave. If there's anything you'd like to say, please do so now, or if not, could you show yourself in light full? And didn't see anything at that time, and I was sitting by the kitchen at that particular time, and one of my co-investigators was sitting on the couch over there, and said, okay guys, that's enough. I got up, and Carol, my investigator, got up as well. She looked at me and looked off to the side of there. She dropped all her equipment on the floor, and she went, turned around and looked, and there was just like this huge black mass standing in the way. But behind it was the kitchen, and there was like a hood with a clock that lit up the kitchen quite well. But in front of me, there was this just black mass. And that's probably one of the only few times that I've got that close to something like that. And again, it's like a once in a lifetime thing for me.
So what did you do, Peter?
I walked through it. Don't ask me why. It's just adrenaline kicking in at that time, kind of a bit apprehensive and scared at the same time, I don't mind saying. And when you read ghost stories and stuff like that, where people say that the presence of spirits, they feel cold. I didn't. I actually felt like an electric charge going through my body as I walked through it. And that, to me, is probably one of the most compelling moments of my life, investigating for sure. Yeah.
Poltergeist. German for noisy ghost. Everyone's probably seen the movie Poltergeist by this point. It's rarely, if ever, that dramatic. But it's things move, bangings, sometimes screeching, screaming, that kind of thing. It's anything related to physical disturbances and sound, objects being moved or destroyed. Doors slamming, bangs or knocks, faucets turning off and on. physical attacks, scratches, which are very common again, in Hollywood and movies and books. There's a lot of different theories about it, but the belief is that these are events caused by the subconscious mind. So someone, it's not so much a spirit, but someone manifesting this energy from within them out into the environment. This is affects the psychokinetic activity brought on by emotional, physical, or psychological stress. Quite often concern among teenage or preteen girls can also seem to be the focus of these. Peter, you've had the experience of the poltergeist.
Yeah, I only once that it was textbook poltergeist activity, much to what Jason was saying. There was a case in London when I was living over there, and there was a lot of psychological stress in the household. There was a lot of trauma, that kind of thing, and we went there for a number of months. We didn't witness any poltergeist activity at all until the very last night we were exiting, and we were exiting by the kitchen, and in the kitchen there was like this old-fashioned kind of Argo there with one of those old tin kettles, and we were walking out. There was me and another investigator, one behind me, and the other investigator walked out the door like that, and then all of a sudden we had a clonk, and we looked over at the stove, me and the other investigator, and this kettle lifted up probably about a foot above the stove, and it just turned sideways and just fell off from the side of the oven. That was the only time really I've ever seen anything like that, and I soon got out of that.
Yeah, me too. There's a really famous story down in the States called the Bell Witch. If you've heard of that, that's actually apparently more of a poltergeist case. It wasn't so much a witch, but the daughter, I think the eldest daughter, was allegedly actually being abused by the father, and it was her, the energy from that was causing all this activity against Mr. Bell. Inhuman hauntings. So inhuman spirits are entities which have never lived as humans. They have been known throughout history, and every culture has these stories. Angels, demons, fairies, gnomes, and jinns or genies are all classified as inhuman spirits. There are two types, of course, which is the elemental, which elementals come from folklore, legends, and cultural beliefs. Some believe elementals have the ability to manipulate environmental patterns around them or in localized areas. Elementals have a reputation for being extremely troublesome, difficult to remove, and sometimes even fatal. Due to the rarity of the hauntings, these are the opinions. Opinions of paranormal investigators differ on what elemental hauntings are. Then, of course, there's the really popular demonic, which is in every television show. They are rare, but they are unfortunately the first that most people consider any paranormal activity to be. It's a demon, right off the bat. But these are, when they do haunt, and obviously like Peter was saying, he works for an ordained exorcist as someone to kind of suss out if there is actual demonic activity. How many cases in the years you've been doing that, Peter, have come close to even being potentially requiring an exorcism? Three. Yeah. So 3 in 10 years. Not like Zach Baggins, who gets possessed on every episode of his television show. Some paranormal investigators do not believe in demonic hauntings. Rather, they prefer to refer to them as negative. That's actually what we use at Canadian Paranormal. It's believed that demons are drawn to raw human emotion. Consistent negative feelings such as anger, regret, stress, jealousy are supposed to attract these demons to you, and then they eventually use that to feed off your energy, and then obviously there's the whole concept that they eventually want to possess you to cause harm. Portal hauntings. Now this is sort of one of those theories I think that's popularized. That there's places where you can go that are portals to the spirit world or some other reality. There's so far never really any proof to this. It's more speculation. But there are kind of areas in the world that just seem to have more activity than others. Whether or not you can use that to travel between sides remains to be seen. I think Skinwalker Ranch is one that a lot of people like to believe is a portal to somewhere else, be it the spirit world, another dimension, another time, etc. A few different portal theories. Near-death experiences. Some believe that that is a means of traveling to the afterlife or to another dimension. Some believe you can go to a past life through that period after you die, etc. That's all right. Mirrors. A lot of cultures believe that in a mirror that spirits can travel through mirrors, in which case we're in trouble because there's several mirrors around Sicamous. So that if you die in a room with a mirror, you can go into that mirror. And all, being excited there, Peter. And shaman portals. In ancient times, even within Aboriginal tribes today, people depend on shamans or medicine men to lead them through a portal to another dimension or to the other side. You okay?
Okay, no. Goodness.
And all of these, none of this has actually been proven in any way. That's kind of what we, Peter and I and Miriam and other paranormal investigators here to do. We're looking to gather as much evidence as we can to either prove or disprove that any of this is real. If you have something happening though in your home, reach out to the paranormal investigation group for answers. We do not ever charge a fee for what we do, and be wary of any group that does. We're simply here to find out information and to help you understand what's happening, as we're trying to understand it ourselves.
Okay.
And if people have trouble seeing through, you're more than welcome to come through and see these pictures.
So I was going to say,
yeah.
I'm going to go through a few of my pictures that I've collected.
Oh. Did someone open that? Oh. Oh, it's Katie. Oh, okay. It's Olivia.
This is Olivia, and he's one of our team members. Yeah. It's his wife's birthday, and we didn't think he'd make it. Yeah. I don't know how he snuck out.
I bought diamond earrings.
You bought diamond earrings.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay, so as to what Jason was saying earlier on, if you guys at the back can't see the screen properly, you guys are going through these pictures, feel free to step forward, come and take a look. The following photos have come out of my archive for the last 15 years since I've been living in Canada. The following pictures have been taken in controlled environments, so I knew and I was aware about any environmental or any natural reasons why these images occurred on these pictures. And to me, I do obviously know the characteristics of how a camera works, and I'm still, I could not debunk or find a logical explanation to them. I don't think these have been ghosts or anything like that, but to me, they're unexplainable. So the first one is a picture that was taken at night in a heritage site in Surrey, BC. And the very first picture was taken by my camera, and as you can see, there's nothing there. This was a test shot prior to the image being taken, and this is the upstairs of the heritage site, and it's called Stuart Farm. I don't know if you guys know Surrey, BC that well. And this was taken at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the next shot, there's, I don't know if you guys can see it.
It's too light in here.
Is it too bright?
It's still too bright, yeah, for me to see from here even. Yeah, unless everyone moves up.
How about everybody comes?
Yeah.
Come on forward.
Yeah, just come on up. You can't see it from back. There's too much light. Yeah. Don't be shy. Get on up there. Come on down. The place is right. Hey. Come on down.
Yes, yeah,
Come on
do that
down.
again.
Just standing here. It's
So
okay.
if you look at the image on the right hand side, there's like a shadow figure there, but I'll bounce it back. And if you guys want to come over to the computer, you can see it a lot clearer. I can take a step back.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a woman standing over the side there. And then, you guys see that?
No. Maybe they should just fly by the computer and, see it that way. You can't.
Other ones are more apparent. so we could always have.
All right, apologies guys, sorry. This one was in Chilliwack. So a few years ago, when I was part of a Paranormal site, we were actually contacted by the city. There was a few houses that were built on a Indian burial site, and allegedly there was some activity going on in a particular block of houses in that area. So we were asked by the city to go in there and document what was going on. We got this from an overnight stay in one of the homes, so this is one of the first shots. Second shot was that gates coming down the stairs there. So back.
There we go. Yeah,
And then
you can see it if you're close.
This next one is Lamplighters. It's no longer exists. It's in Langley in BC, and we were called in there because the restaurant had untold amount of paranormal activity over the years in there, and we were in there documenting. This particular picture was taken when all the investigators were in the basement, and what I'll get you guys to pay attention to is this area here. And so on this side here, and I know it's not very clear or anything like that, there's a doorway which goes into the street area there. And then there's a door there, and then as soon as you walk through the threshold of the doorway, you've got that frame there with a coat stand and stuff like that. So,
You can see that one, Pete.
glad. Okay, next one was taken from a childcare centre down in the lower mainland. We set up some cameras overnight, and these were set on motion. And I went through cameras next day, and I put this image here. And so as you can see, that there's like tables there, and there's chairs there, and stuff like that. That's some kind of manifestation there. A lot of people have had theories about what it could be and stuff like that. It's kind of, people looking up at clouds and saying that they can see their Uncle Fred and that kind of thing. But it's a manifestation of something, and to me, to this day, it's still one of my better captures. This one, hopefully you will capture. This was, now we can't disclose this place, can we?
No, we can't.
No.
It's a hotel.
This is a hotel within the proximity of the interior. How's that?
That's good.
That's
I like that.
So this hotel has it's very historic and has a number of stories relating to the actual hotel over the course of the history. So this particular area is the top area of the hotel, and this particular night I set up a laser receiver at both ends of the landing. So on the far end over there, in that far corner there, which you're not going to see it, but through that doorway there on the far right hand side, there was a receiver, and then the laser was over the other side of the way that way. So it went through the banister. So if anything walked past that doorway of that room, it would send a signal to the camera, which set the camera off. So we set that up, and then you won't get the first picture over there, but this is the picture, the image you captured in the middle. You can see that there. So what was interesting about this picture is that a few months later, another team member, what we used to do at that particular time, we used to go around the building with cell phones and taking pictures of random areas and stuff like that. She was actually on the ground floor, and she caught, and you can see the feet coming through the doorway there on the right hand side. Same kind of image coming through, exactly. Yeah. Okay, next one is, this is Stave Falls Powerhouse in Mission. Used to be the old BC Hydro place. About 10 years ago, we used to do a number of public investigations there. And this particular night, we were up in the games area, and there's on the right hand side there, there's two friends of mine from another team that used to be a part of a team down the Lower Mainland, and they were sitting around the area For some reason my camera started going off, and then they picked up this image there by the side of there. Okay, the next one is the Commonwealth Hotel in Commonwealth. You guys aware of Commonwealth Hotel? With Penticton?
Yeah.
Yeah, historical town. The hotel has actually been shut down now for about 6 years, and we were there about 10 years ago and did a number of experiments there. The bar was quite prolific. This particular one was that I was in the bar on my own, and I was asking questions, and then I felt a presence on my left-hand side, and I actually had a smell of like fragrance as well, and I managed to capture that on the right-hand side, sorry, left-hand side there as well. This one is the James Corrin Theatre in Burnaby. We did another fundraiser there, and we were up on the stage, and we could hear the seats being moved, like someone kicking the seats. I shone my torch over there, and I pushed my camera to set, which was remote control, and I took 3 or 4 shots, and I captured that.
Oh.
Someone sitting in the crowd.
Wow.
This one's back to the Chilliwack site. This is a residential. This house was actually next door, which upstairs on the landing. So we took similar shots upstairs, and we did an overnight there as well. And we caught these images going through. You can see that black mass on the left, and then it just passed us through the door and then through that way.
Could you run that cycle again?
To the bottom, and then away. Okay, the next one. This one is, if you guys can see it, it's a corridor of a residential case we did in Surrey. And what it is, it's my laser grid, as to what I was alluding to earlier, I was talking about earlier on, and it was lighting up the whole of the corridor. I was actually behind the camera at the time, and I was just taking hundreds and hundreds of shots of the one corridor, because that was where all the apparent activity was. There was talks about a guy that used to rent one of the rooms on the left-hand side. He was into black magic, that kind of thing. And there was a lot of other things that went on in the house. So I took loads of shots, and then I picked up this one, which I didn't see at the time, which it's kind of weird, because the white streaks both on the left-hand side and the right-hand side represent some kind of reflective material that the guy's wearing, whether it's a ring or something like that. But there was, with the t-shirt he was wearing and how tall he was, didn't correlate to anyone there. Like, this was in like the dead of winter as well. And we couldn't explain that image whatsoever. Next one is Lamplighters, which is on the, where you saw that image by the doorway. It's actually on the other side. There's a cash office at the back, and there was apparent a lot of activity around the women's washroom around there, and the cash office as well. So we set up cameras there, and we captured these. You see the leg, and then whatever it turns around, because you see the back of his leg turn like that. And then it disappears. Next one is Harrison, BC. We did a residential case down there. I was setting up one of my cameras up in the doorway, and I was just playing about with the camera. And on the left-hand side, you can just see an outline of the client's face there, Charmaine. And I was just playing around with the camera, getting the camera to work correctly. This doorway was the focus of the investigation, because this part of the doorway was actually Charmaine's bedroom, and it was that part of the building actually came from Duncan and was brought over and rebuilt, but that house was existing. But all of her dogs were always barking in the doorway, and there was always a natural curiosity about the door. So I was taking shots, and I was trying to get the camera set up, and I caught that image. Next one is Bastion Square in Victoria. There's famous story there of a woman in white that occupies the Bastion Square. My team were fortunate to go and investigate the Maritime Museum, and I set up cameras in the back end of the Maritime Museum, which used to be a part of the Bastion Square where they used to hang people. And the area where it had been built on was the area where they used to hang people. And there was a story about a lady in white that resided in that area, and she was like the first and last person to be hung in that area. There was an injustice, that kind of thing. I set the cameras up at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon so that the images is really bright. I apologise for that because I was using a full spectrum camera. It was still daylight, so it was like 5 o'clock in the evening. What I did was I set the camera up and I locked the door, and I was expecting it to just, go off in the early hours of the morning because I was going to come back next day. Within a few minutes, it picked up this image on the left-hand side, which kind of looks like that horror movie image with the long hair kind of thing, and disappears as well. Next one is the Harrison case. It was in a cupboard, and that shadow on the left-hand side wasn't there. This next one, this was in Barkerville. We took this 2 years ago.
Yeah, October of 2001. We had the whole site to ourselves for a whole
2001.
day. 2021. Wow, it's the heat.
Yeah, I know.
We had the whole site to ourselves, and what we were able to do, because we were there for 2 days, is overnight we were able to leave our cameras set up in various buildings. This is in the post office. Cameras facing the only doorway into this room. And people had been saying that they felt or seen a presence in there. And we have images of like the night security guys going through and taking a look. But we caught this, it was like 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or some time in the middle of the night. And you can kind of make out the head, arms, like that. The door didn't open. There's no shot of anyone opening that door before that picture was taken or after.
It's like a guy's wearing like a waist jacket with like a white shirt. That's kind of what we got from there. Next one was I was invited a few years ago down to Tombstone, Arizona with TAPS, and we did an investigation at the Birdcage Theatre. This was the first image I caught. On the left-hand side there, that's the basement area of the Birdcage Theatre, and this is actually the gift shop there. That was actually on a TV show as well, and I didn't get any credit for that.
No.
This was an image that Jason and Grant from the show captured, and I managed to replicate that with that was captured on the stairs at the back entrance of the Birdcage. And I caught that off of my camera. I was quite happy with that one as well. So what it is, I don't know, but I found that quite interesting. This was a hotel in the interior. Again, we can't disclose the location. And on the left-hand side of that wall, there was an opening that used to go down by the riverside, and that's where they used to smuggle in prostitutes and booze. In like the late 18th century, and it was stoned up, so there was still a part of the entrance still left open, and there was apparently a lot of activity in that area as well. We had objects being moved down there overnight. I set my camera up and overnight down there as well, and I thought that was one of the first shots. That was the second shot. That's it.
So anyone here have any experiences they would like to share at all? No one will judge, obviously.
It is taking people outside for this.
We're almost done.
Oh my God.
Now, any questions that anybody has? If you don't want to share an experience.
We have a
anything.
ghost in our house.
You have a ghost in your house? What sort of activity do you guys have?
We have a ceiling fan in our living room, and it has a remote, and it has a light switch to turn it off and on, and it has a light underneath it. The last 2 years, we've caught, or what's happened is we've gotten up in the middle of the night, and the lights been turned on, and there's nobody awake, and it heats up the whole house, and it's just gross, because we don't have central air, it's just air. So I've taken the batteries out of the remote, I've hidden the remote, thinking my kids are doing something silly, you know. But it continued, and then just last week, the fan went down to a low setting. We thought maybe one of the neighbors or something, but it only happens in a certain period of time. And then it doesn't happen in the fall, doesn't happen in the winter, doesn't happen in the spring, which is really odd. And then something that my youngest son made for me was on the opposite side of my fireplace mantle. And I'm OCD, so there's no way that I would have put it there. So yeah, so it's just been, so we've nicknamed him Jack. And
Nice.
so we talk to him.
And that's actually quite a good thing to do if you're okay with something like that being in the house.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a break, because it's smoking hot in here.
Yeah.
We're going to be here for a while too, like, so if you guys have any questions while we get some air and all that, we'll be hanging around. But thanks so much for coming and listening to us talk. I think after you guys eat, we're going to go out and